YouTube, it's Lydia again, and I'm here on my floor with my chameleon Cyrus to tell you guys all about thumbnails. Essentially, thumbnails are tiny sketches that you draw before you tackle a big illustration. They're meant to be very quick sketches to get your ideas flowing and help you figure out the composition of your piece. Typically, you want to do as many thumbnail sketches as possible. I wasn't the best at this in school. I wanted to get right to the detail. One of my teachers always wanted us to do 20 thumbnail sketches before every single piece, and I hated it. I shouldn't be telling you guys that. However, even though it seems like kind of a pain to have to draw a whole bunch before getting into the good stuff, it really does help. So these are some thumbnails. I can barely call them thumbnails because they're so big and detailed, but at bare minimum, they did help me kind of figure out how I wanted the gesture of the figures to flow, and are a lot quicker than spending hours on one position before realizing I don't really like how this is going. If you don't like the idea of doing 20 small little thumbnails, at least you can do 4 sketches like this to kind of get an idea of what you're drawing. Even if you end up going with the first one like I did here with this piece, it did help to kind of see different ways I could go about it, and I did end up taking elements from the other pieces and putting it into the first one. If you guys have been following my Floral February art challenge, you may have seen on Instagram that I've been posting at least 4 sketches of each piece and kind of deciding with you guys which one I want to go with. This has been really helpful because I've actually gone against what my gut feeling was at first and done a completely different, more dynamic illustration that I would have started if I had just gone with my first idea. Thumbnails can be done in any medium. A lot of people use pen so that you don't erase, you just really have to stick with what you put down. Or of course you can do it digitally. I usually like to sketch traditionally, so what I sometimes do is take a picture of my traditional sketches, put it into Photoshop or Procreate, and draw on top of that for my next sketch. So let me take you down here and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm gonna use pen for this exercise. You can absolutely use pencil or digital, but pen is just cleaner for me and it's gonna smudge so bad if it's pencil. So the first thing you want to think about when doing thumbnails is what your finished illustration's aspect ratio or size is going to be. So are you going to have a square? Are you going to have, a portrait? I'm just going to draw down here real quick. A portrait or a landscape. And then of course, are you going to have, 8.5 by 11 or maybe 16 by, what is it? 16 by 9? 9 by 16? I don't know, I think that's like a widescreen ratio. But personally, for my recent pieces that are going to be used as a coloring book, I am doing 8.5 by 11 portrait size because that's just, what my book is going to be. Now, when I've previously done books, I have just drawn whatever size I want, and that has totally kicked me in the butt because then I have to resize and redo everything. Just like with my calendar, I did the pieces totally not in a square and had to make up for it with digital painting when I wanted to do a square calendar, and that's not fun. So this really helps with that. Some people measure this out. I just do it really rough. It's totally up to you what you want to do. If you want to go crazy and just completely measure things to make sure everything's even, go for it. Since these are such rough sketches, I'm also going to make the aspect a little rough. The first thing, besides the size of your piece and your aspect ratio, is what idea do you have? What is the subject matter going to be? For example, the next piece I'm personally going to be working on is going to be a flower girl, another flower girl. So just a flower, I don't even need to put flower girl. Wow, writing sideways is hard. Flower girl. And the flower is going to be a peony. And a peony is, to me, kind of like a curvy type of flower. It's very voluptuous. So since I'm drawing women with a peony, I'm going to go for a more voluptuous woman. See how, I really get into a rough mood when I do these. I don't want it to look super clean at all. just puts a bunch of wasted effort if you just go straight into tiny little detail and then go, oh, I don't even like the position, I don't even like the composition. So use a few of these boxes to think about the gesture, how, you know, the girl flows in the piece, and then maybe add in the peonies later. Maybe you want it to be focused solely on the peony and want the girl to be kind of a background design element. So let's try 2 of those out. So let's say in this box, I want the girl to be the focal point. So I'm just gonna be really rough and just draw a quick gesture. You can look up reference for gestures if you want. You can look up, you know, anything on Pinterest before doing this, get some ideas, have an idea board up, or you can just let your mind flow freely at first and do that later. Totally up to you. So, okay, so this is more up close. I'm trying to draw the flow of her. Doesn't necessarily have to stay that way the entire time. Just super rough. Maybe she's like looking up. Maybe smiling. It doesn't even have to be that detailed, to be honest. What you're really worried about, personally for me, since I'm doing a coloring book, these are all going to be lines, but I'm still kind of thinking, okay, when somebody colors in these lines, is it going to create a cool negative space? So like the background. I'm gonna color it in just so you see the negative space, but it doesn't have to be black. So here's what the negative space would look like in this image. It's interesting, it creates different shapes. There's an interesting flow to it. Oh, wait, that's her hair. Oh, jeez. But you get the picture. And you might even look at this and say, what the heck is that? And that's fine too. These really aren't meant to be, gosh, they just aren't really supposed to read as a finished piece. They're just supposed to be really, really rough. Okay, so the next one, maybe I want to focus more on the peonies. So these are really, really rough. Let's just say this is a peony. Really up close in the foreground so I could do all the detail later. Maybe some leaves coming out, and just have like a, let's see, like a really up close portrait just kind of mixed in with the flowers, like that's an eye. Just really mixed in, so it's so up close that you barely even see the person. And maybe you don't like one of these, and that's fine, at least you tried. And then with this one, it's so up close that there's not really negative space. So if you were to color this or shade it, you would kind of want to decide, okay, how can I make this stand out? Do I want the flowers to be darker, or do I want the face to be darker and pushed back? And you could also like take a few of these squares to try contrasting versions of that idea. So to finish the top set, maybe I will try to draw a figure that's farther away. Sure. Let's see. Let's do something like sitting. Like I said, these poses could be super rough. Maybe go back and look them up later, or have poses in mind. You can always take it out and do bigger sketches of the poses before you go into the finished drawing. Let's have her looking down. So curvy. Maybe make a design out of her hair. Let's go crazy. Let's have it going up. Flowing in the air. Why the heck not? You can see how you could get carried away doing 20 of these though, if you really want to play with different positions and different concepts. And it can be really helpful because maybe you'll do something that you never thought of. Like, I never thought of this. It just kind of came to me while I was doodling. And it could be helpful. Maybe the flowers are down here and she's looking down, and on the floor, maybe they wrap around, mimic the other shape in the hair, kind of flowing this way while the hair flows that way. Just kind of play with it. It really doesn't have to look good, like I said. And then if it's even more zoomed out, you might want to think of like the background. Like maybe she's laying on a hillside, and there's some tall trees in the background, and I don't know. Just play with it. Just keep going, keep doing more ideas. Maybe this one she's laying down with flowers in her hair. The hands on her neck. Just chilling. She's just chilling. I don't even know. I don't think this reads. Like I can see it since I'm trying it, but I don't think it really reads. Oh, that's why talking about thumbnails are hard. Her arms out underneath her hair. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just walk away from it. There's really no such thing as a bad sketch. At least you know, okay, I don't like that. How can I make it different? Maybe I still want somebody lying down, so I'll change the angle. Like the angle is kind of funky here. So in the next one, I'll draw the head. We have it flowing out towards the viewer. You can always extend the picture box if you need to. Make it bigger on all sides. So her hair's like flowing forward, and maybe there's some leaves coming out of her hair and some peonies there, and the rest are coming from her chest, coming out, and she's holding her flowers while she's lying down. The focal point gets brought forward, and then we have some negative space up here for more flowers to kind of flow out. So there's a yin and yang kind of deal going on. What I've been posting lately is more the finished version of this. It would be like I do a bunch of thumbnails, and then let's say I take like this pose out, and I do a bigger sketch that's more more detailed, like, oh, I really like that pose, so I'm just gonna work on the sketch and work on her hand on her face, and I hate hands, and make it still really flowy, but a little bigger, a little more detailed, and then I would go look, like if I really didn't know how to pose this, I could go look up some similar poses, maybe get even more ideas, switch it up a bit. And if I lose the gesture while I'm drawing, I can just do it again. Just, that's why it's so fast, because it's okay, like if it's really not very good. The last thing you want to worry about when doing preliminary sketches and thumbnails is whether or not it looks good as far as drawing skill goes. It's not what you want. So that still fits into the box that I did before. It's just bigger, maybe a little more detailed. Now I can figure out, okay, where the heck are the flowers going to go? Maybe one right here. So they're more of a design element instead of the focus like here. So then another good thing about doing multiple ones is, okay, maybe I didn't like this one, but I liked that idea I thought of when doing it of the flowers coming out of her chest, kind of like exploding out like a heartbeat or something, I don't know. So then I would mimic that in my other piece, or in my other thumbnail, I should say. I can worry about, you know, if I want clothing later. Just do a rough little design here. She's not very curvy like I want her to be. Well, I can fix that. You can fix that. Get curvier, girl. what else? Let's say I really do like that pose. I'm like, yes, that pose. So then let's say I'm not doing light art, I'm doing a full-on piece. So I'll bring it down here and kind of redraw that pose and try to figure out the lighting. So we have a main shape here. Going down again, the curve of her body, curve of her hands. That's similar-ish, sure. And I'll do it maybe 3 times. So then I can work on the lighting or the value of each piece, or of the same piece. Or if you want to do this digitally, you can take a picture of your main sketch and then kind of work with it in Photoshop or Procreate and adjust the value, adjust the colors. So I mean, that's roughly the same setup. And let's say in this one, I want the light to be hitting her face from this area, so this will be lit up. So I kind of, okay, her hair would be darker on this side. Be darker here too. Dark, dark, dark. So she's looking towards the light. That can be symbolic in a way. You want to think about how lighting reflects some symbolism. Maybe you have a mid-ground in the background, mid-color I should say, mid-tone. Just the focus is very much on her face. And then in this one, maybe the light is coming up from the flowers in her chest. So it would be, this is a hard one, but you could always look up lighting for different aspects and kind of see what it would look like. The hair would be darker. We're gonna create like a glow almost, like her hair would kind of go back into the background. This isn't like to teach you about lighting, by the way. This is just to show you ways you can play with your thumbnails. Like, you can play with lighting, you could play with gesture, you can play with, you know, the content in it. So it would kind of radiate out from the center. And the detail would be right in here. If you don't want crazy light in your piece, then just think of what aspects of the piece you want to be dark. So let's say I really want her hair to be black. I want it to be black as night. And that's gonna make her body pop out, her face, and the flowers right here will just pop out because it's silhouetted by this black hair. And then if I really extra want it to be silhouetted, maybe a black dress. So there's almost a design in the dark areas versus the light areas. Maybe the background will be light, or again, if you want to make it medium ground to not have it contrast so much, then her face would be her face and her skin, and the flowers again would be the focal, because whatever is next to dark, whatever light is next to dark is going to pop out and be the most contrasting element. So up here, there's totally different concepts. Each one is unique. And then we went with this one, kind of made a bigger sketch, could do it even more detailed. And then we did really similar sketches down here, and yet they're all different because the lighting and the value is different in each piece. These are just some ways you can use thumbnails. If you can use them for whatever helps you see the big picture first before going into the detail of your piece. I guess that's the main goal with these, is to not go straight into the detail, to kind of play around with how many different ways you can take one idea and make it a different piece and go with the one that stands out to you the most. So here are some sketches that I did for my first Floral February prompt, which was tulips, and I didn't really do the small boxes like you saw me just do. I just kind of played with the themes and the overall sketch, especially because I'm doing line work. So for me, doing value studies isn't as important as getting the meaning and the pose down behind the piece. I ended up going with this one right here. However, I do really like this one right here, and we'll be using it later for a different flower. So if you like multiple thumbnails, you can always
you know, keep them for later, which is another awesome way to use this. But as you can see, I did go a little more detailed in these, so, you know, there's really no wrong way to do this. Okay, so I actually went back later off camera and worked on those thumbnails I was showing you and ended up with this kind of middle ground sketch here. And as you can see, it's different. I looked at some anatomy poses and some flower designs and kind of switched it up a bit, but it's still super similar to the sketches from before. So hopefully this will help you guys see how the thumbnails progress into the final sketch.
So there you guys go. Hopefully that made you think about how to start your sketches from now on. I definitely hope to see you guys post more under Floral February. Your drawings so far have been awesome. I love seeing how everybody tackles each prompt differently. If you don't know what I'm talking about still, I'll link the video below describing what Floral February is and how to join. And if you guys liked this more how-to video, definitely like it, subscribe for more, and leave me a comment down below with what other drawing tips you'd like to talk about. Thank you so much for tuning into another Lyfe illustration video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Say bye, Cyrus. Say goodbye. Alright, go take it down. Go take down the phone, Cyrus. Clean it up. Clean up these lights. Clean up this stuff. Clean it up. Go clean it up now. Thank you.